It's just the utter desperation. We used to joke about Trump derangement syndrome, but we know what this is all about. This is beyond a joke. They know that Biden can't win. Latest polling today has President Trump trouncing the old man, the senile old man in the White House, and they just want to make it impossible for the American people to freely choose their next chief executive. From the FBI Mar-a-Lago raid on his home to the various fallacious, insane indictments in New York and Washington, D.C., to this latest attempt, this is just the left trying to make sure that Americans don't get to freely choose their next president.
So your view is what? Those Supreme Court justices in Colorado are corrupt. They're somehow bent.
No, they hate President Trump. And if that's your definition of bent, I'll go with it. Yes, the idea that 6 of the justices who went with this decision even refused to put their names on the 300-page word vomit tells you everything you need to know. These people, the Insurrection Act applies to those who were involved in the Civil War of the 1860s. There was no insurrection on January 6th because the only person who carried a weapon and killed anyone was the police officer who shot an unarmed woman who was a 14-year Air Force veteran. Her name is Ashley Babbitt.
But storming,
it's the only insurrection in history where the insurrectionist didn't have any weapons.
Storming the Capitol building, leading to over 140 people being injured. We've seen the videos. We've seen the images, Mr. Gorka.
Well, have you seen the videos that were released last week by the new Speaker of the House?
Did you
see those videos?
There were violent attacks.
No, hang on. Answer the question. Did you see those videos?
I've seen plenty of videos
of the Capitol Police with zero provocation, firing rubber bullets into the crowd.
I did actually see some of those videos, Mr. Gorka. The
right.
videos I'm talking
about.
There's
a lot of questions about January 6th, Ben.
But the videos we don't dispute that there were violent scenes in the Capitol building, do we? We don't dispute that over 100 people were injured in that attack.
We don't
it was an
dispute
insurrection.
that something bad happened on that day, but why it happened? And also, what has President Trump got to do with it? He said, literally 2 hours before anything happened, we are going to march peacefully and patriotically to the Capitol. Now, Ben, I ask you, marching peacefully, do you have a right to do that in a free society?
But he also said, be there, it will be wild, didn't he? And he was proved right in the most shocking fashion.
Is marching peacefully an insurrection?
No, but raiding...
Well, there you go.
Hold on.
So how can you charge him with being an insurrectionist?
You put a question to me. Let me answer it. What we saw on the 6th of January was not peaceful. We saw a violent attack.
So who's responsible for it, Ben?
Well, I would put it to you that the sitting US president tweeting, come to a big protest, be there, it will be wild, has to bear some of the responsibility.
Have you ever been to a party that was wild? Did you call it an insurrection afterwards? How about this? I'm sure as a journalist you'd be intrigued with this question. How is it that the sitting director of the FBI, under sworn testimony in front of the Senate and the Congress, was incapable of answering the following question? And if your listeners don't believe me, you can watch it on YouTube. Christopher Wray was asked, under sworn testimony, how many undercover FBI assets did you have amongst the protesters on January the 6th? You know what his answer was? I can't tell you. Why would that be the case, Ben? Why would the FBI director be incapable of telling us how many undercover agents he had disguised as Trump protesters? Doesn't that bother you?
Not especially, Mr. Gorka. No, I've got to be honest with you.
That doesn't bother you?
It doesn't bother me particularly. I can see multiple reasons why they wouldn't say that.
But why can't you talk about it then?
I think it's a distraction with respect from the fact that many supporters of your man, Mr. Donald Trump, launched a violent attack on the US Congress, and you're arguing that he bears no culpability whatsoever for that.
Absolutely. When I was there, you weren't there. I was in the front row. I was literally 30 feet from my former boss. I was in the front row outside the White House. Mm-hmm. I heard what he said. Peacefully and patriotically, that's a pretty weird way to ignite an insurrection. If you think that's how you incite an insurrection, you are also a propagandist like the Colorado Supreme Court judges.
I can assure you I'm not. But on the topic of judicial independence, if this is overturned by the Supreme Court, Mr. Gorka, and your logic being that the Colorado Supreme Court is Democrat skewed, the US Supreme Court tilts towards the Republicans. 3 of the judges on it were appointed by Donald Trump. You have to cast doubt on the independence of that court too, surely.
No, because the question is, do they stick to the law? The Colorado
Right.
Supreme Court has not stuck to the law.
So when it
Have you
goes
read the foot? Have
against
you read
you,
Ben?
when
Ben,
you
have you
hold on,
read the foot?
when it
Ben,
goes
have you
against you,
read?
hold on,
No, no, no,
hold on,
no.
hold on,
Have
hold on,
you
hold on.
read the
I'm
foot?
asking
No,
you the
no,
questions, Mr.
I'm not.
Gorka.
No,
I'm asking you the
no, because
questions.
no, you
I'm
just
asking
asked me
you the
one, and
questions.
I haven't finished
But
answering.
hold on,
So
you
be
weren't
polite
answering
and
the question.
let me finish. Let me finish my answer. If you haven't read the 14th Amendment, which I doubt you have, it is explicit. It was brought in 1868 and says it only applies to certain officers of the state, and it lists them meticulously. And the one office holder it does not mention is the incumbent president of the United States. Therefore, they are politically tainted because they have not
But that was
stuck
my
to the
question, Mr.
letter.
Gorka.
They have not
The
stuck to the letter of the
when you
law.
don't like the ruling, the judges are
No, no,
politically
no. I
tainted.
read the Constitution.
If you do like the ruling, if the Supreme Court overturns it, you won't say they're politically tainted, even though 3 of them were appointed by the man they're asking to rule about.
Clean your ears out. I didn't talk about the ruling. I was talking about the actual law they are saying is the basis for the ruling. And they're lying
But
because
but
I've read the
but
law
why?
and it doesn't apply
But
to the
why can't
president.
you just disagree with the ruling on the legal grounds that you're talking about without
Well,
talking about them all being
because
corrupt and
because
politicised?
of something called fact patterns. For the last 3 years, we have seen an utter perversion of the judicial state in America. How? Let me just give you. I mean, you're not familiar with this, and that's fine. That's okay. You're a Brit, but how about the fact that the judge who is ruling over the President Trump case on January the 6th in D.C. is called Chutkan. Judge Chutkan worked for the same law firm, Bose Flexner, for 14 years, where Hunter Biden
They
worked
worked
as
for
her
the
partner.
same law firm. Is that
Same
really as
law
good?
firm.
Is
You are
that really the
prosecuting
best
the
you've got,
current.
Mr.
No, no,
Gorka?
stop.
They
No, no,
worked for the
stop now.
same
No, just
company, and
stop.
that's a sign of
Stop.
what? That's a sign of
Of
what, sir?
an immediate conflict of interest. Do you understand the concept of
They
conflict of
worked for the
interest?
same company, and that's a massive conflict of
So
interest.
when you are prosecuting or hearing the case of the man who is the current leader of the opposition, who is the only real challenger for the current
Right.
president, and the judge was a buddy of the person who is the current
But they,
president's son,
they
you know that stinks to
they
high
worked
heaven.
for
Don't
this.
don't be
So
silly. Don't be silly.
working for the same company is a conflict of interest, but
Utterly,
ruling on the man who
utterly.
appointed you to your job on the Supreme Court isn't.
Well, that's how we choose. If you don't like how we choose Supreme Court
No, I have no
justices,
issue with
that's
it.
tough.
But if you're going to
That's
talk
tough.
about conflict of interest, that strikes me as a pretty significant one.
But it's the system of how we choose judges. If you don't like how Americans choose judges, don't live here. But you don't. So
Well, I
tough.
don't. And that means I
So
might
that's our
have an
system.
outside sort of balanced perspective
Democrats
on it.
get to choose their Supreme Court
Yeah.
justices, and so do Republicans.
But
It's our
my
system.
point is, Mr. Gorka, if you're going to talk about conflict of interests and working for the same company is a sign of some huge conspiracy to you, then surely you have to accept that 3 judges appointed by Donald Trump, ruling on Donald Trump's validity and legitimacy in standing again for president, well, it's got a whiff of dodginess about it, hasn't it?
They don't rule about the president. Are you familiar with the mission of the Supreme Court?
But
The
you're the
mission of the
one
Supreme Court.
you're the
No, no,
one
no,
who's
no. You're
casting
interrupting me
aspersions on
again. You
judges.
need to stop it. You need to stop it. Do you want to hear my answer, or do you want to be a parrot?
I'd like you to answer my question if you wouldn't mind.
No, I get to choose what I say. This is
What
a free country I'm standing in right now.
I'd be
I
grateful
get
if
to
you
choose
do,
what I
but
say.
I'd be very
Are you
grateful
trying
if
to
you
put
could try
words
and
in
answer
my
the
mouth?
questions.
Are you trying to put words in my mouth?
No, I'm asking you to answer
Well,
my
then you
questions.
shouldn't. Then you should stop talking and let me answer.
Please answer the
Are you going to
question.
let me answer?
It depends if you're going to answer the question or a
No,
question I
because
haven't
you don't
asked.
get to decide whether you like the answer or not, because you're not a dictator and you
Okay,
don't have that power
let's
over me.
have a go. But no,
You
you
don't
are on
have
my
that power
show, and
over me.
I'd be
This
grateful
is
if you
this
could
is the
answer
trouble.
my
I used to listen
questions.
to LBC when I was a kid, but you guys are just rank propagandists.
Go
If
on.
you don't get the answer you want, you just interrupt.
But
Why do you
if
do
it's
that, Ben?
because, Mr.
It's
Gorka,
not up to you to decide
if I ask
what
you a
answers you
question,
like.
hold on.
But no, you don't get to decide
If I
whether you
ask you
like
a
it.
question and you answer a
No,
totally
I
different one,
get to answer
that's
the way
not an
I want
interview,
to
is it?
answer.
That's
I get to. You know what interviews are? When the person answering is free to say what they want. If you don't like that, go and live in North Korea, my
it's
friend.
not that I don't like it. It's not. It's that it's not the answer to the question that I
But
asked you.
you don't get to decide that.
But I
That's
sort of
fa-
do because it's my
that's
show and it's my
fascism.
interview.
No, but you don't get to decide whether an answer is the right answer or not.
I'm not saying
That's
it's the right
fact.
answer, but I will point
Or
out
the
if you're
one you
not answering
like.
the question.
But who gets to decide
Would,
that? You
would
don't.
you
The
like
listeners do.
would you like to
The
answer the question,
listeners
Mr.
do.
Gorka? I'd
The
love you
li-
to. Please, I'd love you to.
do you not think the listeners can decide?
Would you like to answer
I
the
mean,
question?
really, are you so arrogant that you don't think
No,
your
but
listeners can decide whether the answer
I'm
is the
waiting.
valid
I'm
answer?
waiting. I'm
That's
waiting for you to answer it.
childish.
I'm waiting for you to answer it. Please.
The question is a very simple one. The mission of the Supreme Court that you're asking about
Sure.
is to make sure whether a judgment in a lower court comports with the Constitution. They're not there to make laws. They're there to say, sorry, that's unconstitutional, and to strike it down. Nothing else, nothing more. The Democrats would like it to make laws, to behave like a parliament, but that's not its mission. And therefore, your concept of a real conflict of interest doesn't apply.
But it does apply in Colorado.
It does when you're not actually following the law. Yes, absolutely. That's the Supreme Court only judges whether you're following the law or not. In Colorado, they ignored it, Ben. They utterly ignored the 14th Amendment. I advise you to read it. Then you will know.
If the Supreme Court does uphold that ruling, would that be political interference too?
If it upholds it, if it's done properly in concordance with the Constitution, no.
Okay.
But they won't be able to because the Constitution is clear. It doesn't apply to the president.
But if the US Supreme Court does uphold that ruling, you would abide by that verdict. You would go along with that.
I don't do future what ifs. It's a mug's game.
It's good to speak to you, Mr. Gorka. Grateful for coming on the programme. That's Sebastian Gorka, former Deputy Assistant to the President under Donald Trump during his time in office. That the argument, that the case being put forward from Donald Trump's camp, Donald Trump's campaign. Do you buy it? 0345 6060 973 is the number to call. Should Donald Trump be banned from standing for president? Is this all a Democrat witch hunt, as Mr. Gorka there was making out? And what do you think is going to happen in this over the next 12 months?